All here for some MST3K, some RiffTrax talk. Right on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So.
That's okay.
Yeah, we got a nice small little intimate panel set up. So, yeah.
We got the best people. We don't have the most, but we have the best.
We only had like 6 at the first panel of the day, and then none really for poor Gigi. I felt really bad.
Oh.
But, yeah, she's like, no, I just got back to my booth and do stuff there. Like, all right.
Oh, yeah, she's Australian, right?
Yeah, that's right. No.
She's very nice.
She's very nice lady. Flew all the way out here.
You get used to this when you do conventions. Like, it is, you never know when it's going to be a lot or a little or whatever, but it's all, you roll with it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nobody likes me.
I just look at it as if I were the famous person up here, I'd be like, I'll just talk for 50 minutes. I got the microphone. You got to listen to me, so I'll just ramble. I'm good with that.
My theories on the international banking system to follow.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism and you know.
Do you have a bunch of questions or?
I really don't have questions. I mean, I did. I've watched my fair share of MST3K. I actually went to the theaters to watch your guys' RiffTrax for Anaconda was by far.
Oh, thank you.
Like when Owen Wilson looks at the guy and goes, "You are in the jungle," and when he goes, "You're gonna die," I thought that was fantastic.
Sometimes they're just served up.
Yeah, they're just like, and it's out of the park. 3 runs grand slam. No, some of those were great. Like when usually we get RiffTrax. We used to do that for a friend of mine's birthday party where we would go and get the RiffTrax, and that was the birthday party, was to sit and watch. We watched all the first 3 episodes of the Star Wars movies to RiffTrax over like a 3-year period, and then 4, 5, and 6 episodes, and that was. It just made those movies so much better because, episodes 1, 2, and 3 are just so bad.
I hadn't heard.
I mean, is that the premise? Do you guys go and pick bad movies on purpose?
I'm glad you asked that because in a way we started, obviously with the show, it was, we'll send him cheesy movies. It was part of the deal. And our first logo for RiffTrax was actually like a bomb with the fuse lit, which is supposed to be like we're doing bombs. But we've kind of changed on that over the years. And just to sort of announce that or make that clear, once some years ago, we did Casablanca, the classic Humphrey Bogart movie that nobody thinks is a bad movie and everybody thinks is a great movie. So the basic idea was like we can find ways in to make it funny for a lot of different kinds of movies. If it's a bad movie, sure, we can lean into that. If it's something other than that, we can make jokes around it. And if it's a movie like Casablanca, or we did Wizard of Oz too, where a lot of people know the movie itself, we can rely on that as a source of jokes too, unlike say Birdemic, But we assume a lot of people know a lot about the Wizard of Oz who are watching it, so we can kind of get a little deeper into the lore of the movie itself. But in a way, it's made it more interesting for us. We've had to be a little more nimble and adjust our commentary to the thing itself, because we've done a lot of movies we actually quite like. We did Jaws, which I still think is a great movie. Whatever technical limitations it shows now, it's still a really great movie. But there was still so much you can do there. And still, as long as you are gently making fun of a movie, it's more like Kevin Murphy has compared it to a comedy roast. Like when comedians get together, it's like, we all love this thing, but we're going to poke some fun at it. Or you can just sort of go off in a whole nother direction and make it like funny stuff said around the movie. But yeah, if there's something like The Room, Tell Me We So, that's just, okay, thank you. You've done most of the work for us.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, what a story. What a story, Mark. Has everybody here seen The Room, or most of you? Yeah.
If you can stomach it, yeah.
It's some tough sledding there to sit through when Tommy takes off his drawers and walks around. But it's it's a real story. And,
It
and they
is.
made a movie about the making of it, as you may
with James Franco.
James Franco.
That was a really good flick. I mean,
Yeah.
you get into that, it was like, who? I think to this day, nobody really knows where Tommy Wiseau is from or how he has the money he has. It's still a running thing to this day. Nobody knows.
He, if you've ever read the book that movie is based on, which is, what is it called? I'm blanking. Disaster Artist, thank you. Greg Sestero, who plays Mark, wrote it with a really good co-writer, a guy who Mike Nelson has actually worked with. He's just a really sharp, funny background in journalism. So they made a really entertaining book. I actually like the book a little better than the movie. And then there's one chapter where he kind of does this weird hypothetical, like, what if you were, and he kind of tells Tommy's story sideways, like without saying this is his story, but it's more like, hypothetically, if you were a kid who grew up in Eastern Europe and blah, blah, blah. I know it's like heavily sanitized because those guys, weirdly enough, are still friends and still business partners. And I've had Greg Sestero on my own podcast, the sweetest guy, the most normal guy. And I kept asking him variations on, why are you still with Tommy Wiseau? And I think they genuinely like each other and have like a background together. So, but he does tell his story, and it really is. It's like a kid who is. I don't think he's like the child of some Serbian warlord or anything like that. I think he's a guy who was very ambitious, and he made a lot of money in the San Francisco area selling like slightly irregular jeans. He had like a warehouse there. You can even see a commercial he did online where he does like, he's trying to do Shakespeare or something to sell his jeans, but like,
Wow.
But that's at least where some of his money comes from. And he does seem to have like a benefactor who's some old lady, and everybody speculates it's a thing, but I choose to believe that is true.
Yeah. Well, he did that whole. He got in the Heath Ledger makeup when they were talking about making the Joker movie, and he did. Have you seen his audition to be the Joker? I was like, Batman. It's like so bad.
Surprisingly, it is bad. Yeah. Anyway, enough about Tommy. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, I mean this is for you guys to ask questions. So if you've got questions
or comments,
concerns, thoughts, ideas, put the suggestion.
Mickey, are you? Oh, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that it's possible to successfully riff a comedy?
That's a great question. I think it's really.
I already talked about Anaconda.
What's that? No, the question was, do you think it's possible to successfully riff a comedy? And I think my broad answer is no. It's a weird thing to do. We have done stuff that is close. We did Pirates of the Caribbean. And then when we were doing it, we realized a lot of this is for larfs. And what you wind up doing is saying a variation of, this isn't really funny. Listen to us instead. We're funnier. And there's something a little sour about that compared to like a deadly earnest movie that is taking itself seriously, and you can bring the levity yourself. People have been asking for years, like the one movie that I wrote and had made, which is the Eddie Murphy movie, Meet Dave, what became Meet Dave. It's not a good movie. But it is theoretically a comedy, and people are like, why don't you riff that? And honestly, I would love to, but I think it would have that problem of like, it's supposed to be a comedy, there's a lot of lame jokes in it, and we would just be basically saying, aren't these jokes lame? Listen to us instead. So we did, for a couple of movies in MST3K, they definitely have like comic relief moments. Like Hobgoblins is supposed to be funny, but there it's like so astronomically bad that it almost enters another dimension. So there's no hard and fast rule is my short answer, but the more it is trying to be funny, the harder it is for us, and the more puzzling it is to approach. Like, just gonna like poop on somebody else's comedy. It's not as fun. I don't know.
How did you guys get started?
Oh, many decades ago. Well, I don't know how much of you know the history of, do you mean of Mystery Science Theater? Yeah. I wasn't there at the time. I was not one of the founding fathers, but it was started as a sort of cable access thing, just working at night in a station outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Comedian Joel Hodgson, who was the original host of the show and is called the creator of the show, and is that is his costume. Started the show, and it really, like, you almost wouldn't recognize the first, if you've ever seen it online. It's just set in the control room of the station where they were basically sneaking in at night to do it. Not quite sneaking in, but almost like they knew, the people they worked for knew that they were doing something there. And then it got a little bit of a local flavor to it, like a local following. And then miraculously, they got asked to do stuff for what was the Comedy Channel at the time. And this is so long ago that basically it was when cable was starting to find its way. I mean, that's how many iterations of media ago it was. And so they needed content. They needed content for all these hours. And so like a 2-hour comedy show that uses mostly found footage with a low budget and a bunch of Minnesotans who weren't asking for a lot of money. So it's a pretty attractive deal. So, but then it got a little bit of a cult following, and there went on to when the Comedy Channel and the Ha Ha Channel, I think it was at the time, became Comedy Central. They went on there, and then I came on board as a writer, and then it moved to the Sci-Fi Channel. No cause and effect there. I didn't make that happen. And then when Trace, who was the first crow, left, they handed me the puppet and said, "Make it work, mister." Yeah, so that's the story of it. It's an amazing story in a way, like a media story. Does not happen much with a town where national media never gets originated. Like there's some Home and Garden Channel stuff, filmed in Minneapolis. It was known more, if it had any like national market, all it was in two things: music, because of Prince and because of the Replacements and a whole bunch, now Lizzo, but that and public radio. It's like a public radio powerhouse. It really is. Like Garrison Keillor aside, it was like, it's where a lot of the power, public radio, which is a weird thing to think of, public radio power, but not television. So this is it's a unique story of like a local homegrown thing just going on and becoming a cult hit. And I don't claim responsibility for anything, of its success, except for not absolutely ruining it, I hope. Oh, and then a couple of years ago, Joel Hodgson rebooted it, not really rebooted it, but continued it on Netflix after a huge Kickstarter. And
that's Felicia Day, Patton Oswalt.
Felicia Day, Patton Oswalt got bigger stars, that happens. And Jonah Ray is the host. I was on it though, so I can't complain that much. In fact, just as a lark, I like to wear my badge from filming that because
talent.
It's official, guys. I have got it around my neck. So I hope that sort of, maybe more than you wanted to know. You had a question in back, Mickey.
What are your thoughts about doing some of those like short films? Like say that one about the importance of sprays and everything.
I love them unabashedly. I love them for a whole bunch of reasons, one of which is because of my terrible attention span as a human being. I love how short they are, how digestible they are. When we started RiffTrax, we started doing big commercial movies, which we had never done on the show. It was just very prescribed by the running time of the show. We would have to edit them down. And suddenly we had no restrictions on time. And it was a little bit of a hell we made for ourselves, because when you have some of the Star Wars movies or some of the early superhero movies, it's like 2.5 hours of pure content. You can't edit out the sort of more boring parts, frankly. So and then sustaining that level of humor for that time starts to feel weird. So to me, the shorts are sort of the perfect form for riffing, ultimately. There's that part of it, which is just about me being lazy. And then, but then there's the other part of it, which is I love the content that usually comes with that form, because a lot of them are educational films from not that long ago in American history, but they are like a little anthropological dig on what were on people's mind at the time. And a lot of them, we've done them from, all the 20th century decades, but especially from like the post-war time through the 70s is when they really seem to, the golden age of educational films. And it really did feel like you guys were trying to micromanage everything at the time, weren't you? Like when people eat breakfast, how to date. And I know they were supposed to be helpful, but there was, when you add it all up, it's like, is there anything you don't want to control here? But then as you get into the 70s films with color, and they get a little more psychedelic. And we have a working theory that, like, here in California, a bunch of people in the Bay Area got educational grants, like these stoner guys who knew how to work equipment. It's like, let's have something where kids jump up and down and like scream the alphabet, and then a dog running through it. And it's just like they just get really weirder. But I love the educational films. I especially love them when they get so outlandish, like the Coily one, where they're trying to not exactly hide, but sort of hide the fact that they're promoting a product from an industry. It's like, why are we talking about Springs so much? No one has ever talked about Springs this much, ever. But we have this whole premise where, like, guy is really pissed off at Springs, and, the spring god lets them disappear for a day, and calamity ensues. And there was one. There was a Simpsons episode that referred to those kind of things. I think it was with zinc, like just the elements zinc. It's like, let's see what a world would be like without zinc, which they had definitely seen things like that over the years.
Yeah, they did that with like Kentucky Fried Movie did that.
Yeah. It was a real form. You find it again and again where some supernatural demon being pops up and like teaches you a lesson about this product. I mean, and sometimes it was about like auto safety or not getting killed, so it seemed a little more worthy as an endeavor, but like galvanized rubber is good. You should respect it more. Yes.
So of all the movies that you've riffed, like you personally, what is the most bizarre one? Like you're kind of watching it going, what the hell? And then just going on.
Yeah.
Which one was your pick?
Oh, I have a constant rotation in my head of which one. I mean, there's a definite top 10 contenders, but probably the Ice Cream Bunny, for those of you who've seen it. Because again, as is often the case with really weird movies like this, there's sort of a weird backstory to it, which is that for those, I'm sorry if you know this already, but there was a sort of wannabe Disneyland theme park in Florida called Pirates World, and I think they like killed half the people who came there on their rides, but like so it was shut down. But it was like a theme park / concert venue, and this was made by some of the people who were in, I guess, operated Pirates World, and they just wanted to slap a story onto it so they could show their thing. And then I think a director got carried away and tried to make it a real movie, but basically it was just to showcase the place and to like make people know about it. I think there's one other extant thing you can find, which is like concert footage of Deep Purple live at Pirates World. That's like, other than that, it's like gone into the mists of history. And I think Disney World quickly just wiped out everything else because they did it with actual safety and I don't know, a little bit of but yeah, just the idea that you would film a movie where Santa gets stranded on a beach. And then he just babbles for 20 minutes. And then a bunch of kids kind of are summoned, and they don't really know what to do. And a dog is running around who looks like, nobody trained this dog. He's going to bite somebody. And then it goes into the weird, and I don't know if you know this, there are two versions of it. There's one with the Thumbelina story in the middle, and there's one with Jack and the Beanstalk in the middle. But the bookends are exactly the same. And then you come back, the bulk of the movie is the Jack and the Beanstalk or the Thumbelina. You come back for the last, tiny little bit, and Santa's still there on the beach with the kids. Nothing has changed. He's just told the story. And then the ice cream bunny comes with no explanation of what it is, what universe he shares. I think it was just like a thing that drove around a pirate's world. A guy in a costume called the Ice Cream Bunny might even be connected to like selling ice cream, but who knows? He comes with a horrible sounding like Euro fire truck and saves the day, kind of uncertain. And he's terrifying. He's a terrifying, ugly puppet. I made him more terrifying, but that's my job. So that's among, but there are serious contenders for that crown. Have you seen Fun in Balloon Land? It's another one of these like, why was this made thing? And we learned that it was like this company in Philadelphia that made like sort of smaller versions of the Thanksgiving parade balloons, like the Macy's parade you see on TV. But they were smaller and they didn't really fly, so not sure what the point was. But the first part of it is like this kid wandering around a factory, like talking to the balloons. They try to make a story of it. It's surreal, and then you start fearing for the kid. Like, I hope you got out of this, son. And then it all of a sudden just like switches to this woman who is on Benzedrine or something, talking about like narrating the actual parade on Thanksgiving morning, and obsessing on certain things like marrying turkey, one of their floats. So anyway, that's just the cultural detritus we have waded through over the years. And it's really fun, I have to say. I make it sound like a chore, but it's a real, I don't know, privilege in a way to be like the curator for all this nonsense that it is our job to find. And then we do that. That's a big part of our job. It's like, let's find this weird thing and comment over. And then there's like, let's find Casablanca and see if we can make it funny. Because we want to be funny no matter what. That's our job. We're comedians more than anything.
Do you have a favorite episode of MST3K?
That's another one where a couple of rotate around in my head a lot. But I think it's probably Space Mutiny because of the tasty treats it served up. And the biggest tasty treat we ever got in any of the movies is seeing a fairly prominent cast member murdered in one scene and then having her return in the background for the next scene just because it was a mistake, just because they didn't take care of it in editing. She's like, there she is again. She thought she was just pointedly murdered as a plot point. Like, nope, she's just at her desk. Doodly-doo-doo-doo. So between that and the characters involved and the many names of slab beef thrust or whatever we called. And that guy turns out to be Reb Brown, who was also Captain America on TV. Turns out to be a really cool guy. He is happily posed with people who have referenced that are names for him at different conventions. He's a good sport. So I always like when that happens. He strangles him right after with his massive mitts, of course. Yeah.
Have you ever had a cast member or somebody who was involved in the film react poorly to something you riffed?
Yes. It doesn't happen as much as I thought it might when I first got involved with the show. But there's a sort of grim reason for that. It's like a lot of them are dead. A lot of, because we did so many older movies, it's just like, but Mr. Joe Don Baker, of Mitchell and Final Justice fame, has expressed on more than one occasion his desire to like beat the shit out of us. This is weird because like I actually think Joe Don Baker is a really good actor in the right stuff. Like he's not he's not what you see often on our show or on RiffTrax, like somebody who just doesn't know what to do in front of a camera. If you've seen him in other stuff, there's a Walter Matthau movie called Charlie Varick. It's a weird sort of detective, actually more like a caper movie. Walter Matthau plays a thief, and Joe Don Baker is the main bad guy pursuing him in it, and he's great. He's just this weird character, but he's really tall, very good looking in his day, but kind of like still had that mug. But he looked like a viable threat, and he says all these kind of weirdo lines, and it's like, he's a good actor. Walking Tall, which I saw as a kid. I love that movie. And he's been in some Bond movies and stuff like that. So he's not somebody who I just feel like, what a hack, you know. But it makes me feel a little bad that he felt that way. On the other hand, at this point, he's pretty old. It's like, so he's not going to hurt us. I mean, I'm no spring chicken myself, but he's even older. So just throw him like a ham sandwich and run. It's just like, see, I'm doing it now. No wonder he wants to kick my ass. I don't blame him. Outside of that, really not so bad. Like when we make deals for movies, for RiffTrax, we deal with some very weird people at times who have very back and forth feelings about whether they want they like being paid, like because we pay decently when we use people's work, assuming it's not in the public domain, and most stuff is not in the public domain. And what has been in the public domain, we've kind of burned through at this point. So we're always trying to make some kind of fair arrangement. And of course, we will never do something if somebody just says, no, I don't take the deal. But a lot of people will take it and even negotiate for more. It's like, all right, we'll pay them that much. We think it's worth it. And then get resentful. And then, so I'm not going to name any names, but then they start poking at us for well, you shouldn't do that joke or whatever. It's like, this is not our deal. It's like, you're supposed to go away now. But just as surprisingly are the amount of people who will want to get involved. And we don't always mind that. Like the people from Time Chasers, when we did it for RiffTrax, that whole cast came and flew out to Nashville. Like all of them came out to Nashville and hung out with us and had pictures taken with us. And we were like, are you sure you want we made sure to do it before we actually did the movie, so they wouldn't be like, you son of a so, and they were all just the sweetest people. They're from Vermont. They work with with David Giancola, who's a director there, who's done he was like 12 when he directed Time Chasers. So in a way, I just feel like, bully for you, buddy. When I was your age, I was barely able to walk. So you directed a movie. But all the guys there, the guy with the chin, the Malayan guy, Bob Evil, they all came out. But then they hung around and they had pictures taken with people in the house. They were treated like conquering heroes. So it's this really weird thing where we're making fun of the movie, and even the director came out and he's one of those guys who was toggling between thanks for doing this, thanks for the money, rage, couldn't quite settle how he felt about it, but eventually he made his peace with it because people were coming up to him in the lobby and going, thank you, this was so much fun. We did one last summer I'm blanking on it. It was the one with Casper Van Dien, Saber Rain, Raiders of the Star Raiders. Yeah, as we joked a lot, nobody rated anybody in that movie. No stars were involved. But it was Casper Van Dien. And for those of you who saw it, there were two characters in it. The woman who had the sort of weird veil mask, and the guy who was the transport pilot. We made a lot of jokes about the transport pilot. Just their cellmate. Those guys are a couple, and they made the movie. And they're both martial artists, and like legit martial artists. You didn't see it much in the movie, but they came to the movie and they were very proud. They knew what was going on and they didn't mind, and they just liked the boost and they liked the money. And so it is interesting. I think I would be more sensitive than they were, but they're sort of in it for a good time, and I think they had it.
That's kind of like with like Weird Al Yankovic, where it's like now people want to be parodied
Yeah.
by him. So it's kind of like I've hit that pinnacle where Weird Al wants to make fun of me. Now in the movies, I'm at that pinnacle where RiffTrax wants to use my stuff.
Exactly. Weird Al, us,
There you
on
go.
the exact same level. We actually did have Weird Al do RiffTrax with us a couple
That's
of
awesome.
times. So I will say that he's a friend. He's just a million times more famous.
You had your hand up back there?
I just kind of was wondering whether it was with MST3K or with RiffTrax. Were there movies whose profiles were kind of raised?
Kind of what?
Raised, their profiles
Oh.
raised, or
Oh, yeah.
reappraised, maybe?
Oh, the classic example of that is Manos. That nobody would know about Manos today.
Hands of Fate.
Absolutely was found like in the bottom of some like tub of garbage. Right? No, but it was just in a big box. We would get big boxes of screeners to go through. And this was back when Frank Conniff was sort of the main movie screener. He pulled it out, and I think he took a look and was like, I don't know, maybe this might be something. And I think the story I got at the time is people were very divided on it, because it is a definitely bad movie, and it has those qualities of like, how did this get made that so many of us love? But it also had a really creepy vibe to it. Like, it felt like a snuff film. Like, what was everybody doing here, and what were the relationships between people like? And it did turn out that it was not exactly that, but it was weird enough. The guy who made it was a fertilizer salesman, and in a sense never stopped selling fertilizer. And then, yeah, so that one became a cult classic 100% because of MST3K. I think it would have been absolutely unknown to this day. And I think a lot of the movies on it, like Space Mutiny, I don't think that would have.
Did you guys
gone
ever
away.
do Zardoz?
We never did Zardoz. It was a little too weird and
Statement.
for
Rapey, yes. Sean Connery in a leather
Yeah.
thong.
We've thought about doing it for RiffTrax, but it's still kind of got a creepo factor that.
Okay.
And it also not that our business model is that fascinating, but there are movies we could do because they're in public domain. Like I said before, there aren't many of them, and we've kind of burned through the major ones. And then there are ones we can make deals about, where it's like people, it's a couple of generations removed, nobody's holding on to it tightly, or they're like people who are happy to do it, like I described with Star Raiders. But Zardoz is one of those many, many movies that they were still like sort of big Hollywood movies. There's still a studio attached that doesn't want to muck around with us. So that unfortunately eliminates a lot of stuff. Oh. And we could do it as like an MP3 like we did at the beginning of RiffTrax, but we've learned that if people don't have copies of that movie, like Star Wars or Marvel movies, or they're not readily available like in every streaming platform or Blockbuster, then it's not going to sell, So that unfortunately eliminates a lot of cool 80s movies that I've wanted to do, like Sylvester Stallone movies. We may find a way. I mean, that's why we had the app made, but it works pretty well, but it still hasn't quite caught on. So tell your friends if they're interested in it. It actually basically works pretty well.
What is the app called?
The RiffTrax app. We are not imaginative.
Is that where you get some prizes and stuff in the movie?
There are no prizes.
Gifts in the movies. It says go to RiffTrax.
Oh, yeah. I think we. To get goodies or something. Yeah, that's a little bit separate, but yeah, we did a lot of commercials for the app and our live shows for a while, and then we were like, hey, you know what? People have paid to see this. Let's dial down the commercials a little bit. Anything else about anything? Organic gardening,
Yeah.
yes.
So about organic gardening.
I know nothing, as it turns out.
When it came time to choose Crow, a new person to play Crow, were you approached, or did you step up and say, hey, I could do that?
I was approached. No, no. I think it needs to be said that traditionally, best brains liked to use people they knew and were already paying. But that wasn't necessarily going to happen. Like, first of all, I think the decision was, do we keep Crow or do we invent a new character? Because Trace was so adept and so identified with that character and was so ingenious with that character and Dr. F. Like, I was actually, as a writer in the room and as like a producer, saying, get rid of Crow. I mean, it'll be a tough pill, but maybe a new character is needed. I don't know. I didn't see how you could replace him, and you know, for people who are real diehard fans, it would just hurt to hear some almost worse than, yeah, Joel is leaving and here's the new human, because it's like this is the same physical being with a different personality. But I think they wisely decided, no, we can't get rid of one of the main characters wholesale, however painful the transition will be. So they auditioned a bunch of people in-house, including me. I didn't ask for it, but I was glad to do it. I thought I absolutely sucked. I mean, because I was trying to work the puppet at the same time as do the voice, and it's like that takes some doing, as I learned. And then they had actors come in to audition from Twin Cities and maybe even Chicago to try it out. But as I said, like, they were heavily inclined to try to do it with people they knew and people who also were writers. That's just the way it worked there. So I was surprised and pleased when I got it, but it was like being thrown in the deep end of the pool, because that puppet is a little ornery, and it's not to say that I couldn't get some version of it going, like all you have to do is pull the string to make his beak work, but coordinating that with the eyes, making it work with what you're seeing on the monitor, which is sort of a mirror version, and just, making him alive rather than just flopping him on the desk. That was stuff that came slower. And, obviously Trace had half created the puppet, and he was so good. So I felt bad that suddenly, like, half the life had gone out of him. But I took it home and I practiced. I literally did. Like, I would get on my kitchen counter. My dog would be looking at me like, what is that? Get it out. Ruff, ruff, ruff. So did I answer your question? All right, probably.
As a follow-up, though, I think you did. I mean, your Crow is phenomenal. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you.
They made the right decision to keep Crow, and they made the right decision choosing you.
Oh, shucks. Well, if you're really into the show, you'll notice that in the first couple of shows, I am in vain trying to imitate Trace a little more. I just do a little more of that. His voice is in a different place than mine, and he of course heightened it but it's not a really great imitation. And eventually, Mike and Kevin both said, you can kind of lean into your own thing a little bit more, which I thought was smart. And then they liked me. I think I told you this at the table. They loved whenever I got mad as Crow, so they kept writing more, and they kept writing more. They kept writing tantrums and blowouts and all that. It was like, I don't think I particularly bring that to a character, but the writing suddenly was like, Crow is out of his mind, and just a tiny tinge of New York that was still in my voice at the time, even though I was in the Midwest for a while. So he became a different character in a way, but they let me they let me invent Brain Guy too. So I just feel like I was extremely lucky with that show from start to finish.
As a follow-up, sorry, did you consider yourself a performer as well as a writer when you started with them, or did you kind of have to learn how to be a performer?
No, I was a serious actor. I actually was. Like, I worked at the regional theaters and did Shakespeare and all that. I was at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis. So I had a real background in theater and sketch comedy. But I was hired for the show just as a writer. And I was always toggling between the two, and it was a little bit of an identity crisis at times. But I just, I couldn't settle on one or the other because I liked doing both. I liked not having to have my life completely dependent on auditioning and getting work, so that whenever no one had hired me, I could write something. And they were connected. So I wrote a lot of sketch comedy that I did with friends, So the writing and the acting came together. But I was like a straight theater actor for what? Straight. I guess what I mean is a bragging about my heterosexuality. No. I guess what I mean is a traditional theater actor, as a profession for a little while. But I liked being funny better than doing Shakespeare. That was okay. But so another reason why MST was so great, I got to write and act and write for myself and write for some of the funniest people I knew. And it was just too good to be true. Wasn't it? It was too good to be true because it's not true anymore. No, I still get to do a version of the same thing. And the scam keeps going. Decade 5 of my life now, and nobody's calling yet. Yes.
Is there like a particular riff that you just think is your proudest moment, like just one specific, like not like for a whole in terms of
Just a joke.
Yeah, just a joke.
Yeah, and it shows what a cheap comedian I really am, ultimately. It's not, because I am very proud of some of my more sophisticated jokes and references, but here's the one that I'm most proud of. And it's not even one I said, it's one I wrote. It's for when we did we would do for a while these specials of blockbuster movies coming up, because we could use their electronic press kit and kind of just, use what they gave to the press and thereby skirting the rights issues. So this was one for Titanic, the movie, when it came out. And we had the moment where that actor playing the captain, who was later Theoden in Lord of the Rings, so just a stately, kingly-looking guy with a gray beard, captain of the Titanic, looking out over the deck as it was taking off at the beginning of the movie, proud, swelling music. And I wrote for Kevin to say, I knew it had to be Kevin for some reason, I'm going to sink this. And it's so crude, so dumb, and I'm so proud of it. It just does not reflect well on me, but so be it. That's the one that comes to mind. Yeah, one time.
I know recently you've sent out a message for the Funhouse Patreon.
Yeah.
Saying that maybe it was coming to an end. I don't know if that.
Yeah, this is my podcast that I've been doing, and I kind of started it just because I felt like it was required by law for everybody to have a podcast. No, I have really enjoyed it. I've been doing it for a little over a year, but I'm gonna discontinue the Patreon for it at least, and then maybe just put out shows at a more leisurely pace, if at all. I just have a lot of stuff coming up. It's good. I have a lot of writing to do, and I'm very excited about it. I'm writing a new screenplay, all this other stuff, and it's getting hard to squeeze in. But that's the real reason. And I don't want to take anybody's money, especially since RiffTrax has always got its hand in your pockets anyway. So it's really, how much crowdfunding can we do here before it's just shameless? So I'm going to discontinue mine and see where it goes. But thank you for asking. Thanks, folks. I'm over in the corner of that building. I'll be there until about 5, so come say hello if you have any more questions.
All right. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.